Big 12 Media Days, and who really was a big player there representing Channel 9 locally in Orlando was Alex Walker, sports anchor at WFTV, and he's good enough to join us this week on Sons of UCF Live. Alex, welcome in.
Hey guys, how are we? Thanks for having me on the show.
Doing well. You produce so much content there, but let me begin with this. How's your bow tie game? Because John Rice Plumlee was an A-lister there with that bow tie.
He was, man. That gold bow tie was looking pretty nice there in Arlington, and he said he always wears it for big occasions. And something about that gold bow tie on that stage for JRP was pretty cool to see.
Can you tie a bow tie?
So I can't. But
this is a candid admission here.
I will say I will never, ever, ever, ever buy a clip-on tie. I own like 4 bow ties. They're all already tied, and you just adjust like the width of your neck, and you're good to go. You can't even tell. That's how you got to do it. I don't mess with clip-on ties, but clip-on bow ties all day.
So you were part of the coverage there, more than 700 credentialed media members. What was that like to be a part of that at Jerry's World? You were producing stories over the course of those days. What was it like to be in those scrums and be in the fray?
It was neat. It was my first experience at AT&T Stadium. It's the best arena, best stadium I've been in my entire life, and I've been in Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta. And this is a next level arena, and it was neat to see UCF on that stage. You know, Gus Malzahn joked in his comments that the last 2 years I zoomed into my media days. It's a little different when you're on that big stage, home of the Dallas Cowboys, amongst all those other big time brands like Oklahoma, Texas, you got Baylor, Kansas State, TCU. So to see those guys on that stage, to be in that fray, it was really neat. It was a great experience, and cool to be a part of the ride as they join this Big 12 conference.
Alex, what kind of questions did you get from other media, other folks from other schools? How big a deal was UCF? Were you getting a lot of questions about the Knights? Were you in big demand to share some UCF knowledge with a bunch of our new friends there in the Big 12?
What was neat is that it's two-part answer. First part is UCF. I don't know if you guys saw on Twitter, they had these little neat fact sheets they were handing out in Arlington, which was genius. Making note of how big the alumni base is, making note of their connection to space and NASA. And that was neat because that was kind of the talk of Thursday morning when they were handing those out. That quickly spread. But, got asked a lot of questions just kind of about, their roster. Is JRP the real deal when healthy? A lot of it was, how is it worth making the trip to the bounce house for a weekend? That was kind of one of the big ones. Like, should we make the trip? Should we experience it? Which, of course, was, yeah, absolutely. This is a unique venue. It rocks. It gets loud, and you'll get to see them play on Saturdays for the first time in a while. Usually they're playing on weird days of the week, but we were. It was nice because we had media from other markets just kind of picking our brain about being one of the newcomers on the block, and they're obviously very excited. And a lot of the other coaches, I had a chance to ask Mike Gundy and David Randa at Baylor and Chris Kleeman at Kansas State about excited to come to Orlando for a weekend. And they said, well, Chris Kleeman said, hey, we're excited that they're coming here because they don't want to go to the bounce house and take an early season loss. And so, yeah, it was UCF was big time there. They were one of the big talks of media days, and that was cool to see.
Of the 4 new schools, was UCF kind of the most talked about of the other 3 schools joining us?
It was the most talked about, and it wasn't really close, to be quite honest. It was like startlingly. Is that a word?
It is now.
It is now here on this show. It was almost strange how little talk there were about the other 3 newcomers, if I'm being quite honest. And I listened to every coach go, every player. I made my rounds. There was a couple of BYU media outlets, and people were excited to go to Provo, and BYU, at least recently. Obviously they were a brand back in the day, but they've had some really good teams recently. Cincinnati didn't really hear much about them, to be honest. They had a really good writer there who's great at Cincinnati that was producing some good content. Houston, I would say if there was like a runner-up to UCF in terms of buzz, I would say it was Houston. I mean, this is such a natural fit in this new look Big 12, and Dana Holgerson had a lot of good things to say about his program, and vice versa. But there's just something about, and I'm not just saying that because I cover UCF. It's just there was just something about everyone knows UCF's that team that they've claimed a national championship recently. They've had an undefeated season. They've beaten the big dogs before. Why can't they beat them again? And so it's not like, welcome to the conference, and you're going to get hammered every week, and you're going to be a bottom tier. They're picked middle of the pack, and I think a lot of these coaches think they're going to be upper part of that pack very, very quickly. Maybe even this year. Who knows?
Alex, I like to think Brett Yormark is a very vocal commissioner. He's, very out there. I'm not sure how much time you got with him, but what were your first impressions of with him and with the 4 newcomers and also the 2 outgoing programs in Oklahoma and Texas? What were his, conversations like with those 6 programs?
I tell you what, this is a commissioner that he knows what he's doing. I think when he came, you guys were all there, and you guys heard what he said in October when he made his visit to Central Florida. He was bullish on UCF then, and he's even I think he feels even stronger. I said on my sportscast, it sounds like Brett Yormark has a soft spot for UCF. It just makes so much sense to have UCF be Florida's flagship school in this conference. I mean, you got the 3rd biggest state in the country, and you got one of the premier schools out of it, which is really neat. The thing that I took away the most out of Brett Yormark as a vocal commissioner is when I asked him about UCF. I think the way I phrased the question, I said, when you were here in October, you had mentioned how important having the number 17 ranked TV market was, and how important it was to have a footprint in Florida was. And I said, since October, how has UCF risen to the challenge and gotten onto the big stage? And he instantly was like, they've risen to the challenge. The UCF Twitter mob has embraced the branding. So has the school. And he went on this 45-second, tangent about how UCF makes so much sense, how they've been recruiting under this Big 12 halo, how they've been capitalizing on this move. And to hear the commissioner of the Big 12, who's very, very cutting edge, say that about UCF was huge. You don't think recruits are watching these press conferences and tuning in, and they're in tune with what's going on. And so to hear that from the commissioner was great. He's very in tune of what's going on. When you're seeing all this weird stuff with the Pac-12 and their media rights deal, you got to give even more credit to Brett Yormark and making sure the Big 12 had their spot before all this other stuff started going on, because the Pac-12 is kind of left out in the wind. And so I've been impressed. He's vocal. He's edgy. He's going to try some things that are going to work out. He's going to try some things that aren't going to work out. But I'd rather have a progressive commissioner than someone that's just sitting by and letting everything else happen around him, right?
Right.
In your conversations with Knights players that were there as well, head coach Gus Malzahn, how would you describe it? Is there a confidence going into this league that they feel in this first season that they can hit the ground running?
It was a subtle confidence. I don't think there was no sense of arrogance or cockiness, which is smart. You don't want to come in guns blazing at media days and just start firing off all this stuff and then have the other teams like, all right, buddy, calm down. But JRP, Ricky Barber, those two especially, there was this quiet confidence of, we weren't happy with the way we finished last year. But I think now with a revamped roster, some really high quality transfers, a really, really, really good top 40, top 45-ish recruiting class, they have the chance to do something this year. Gus and the guys did say they didn't do us any favors with the way the start of conference play was designed. I don't think another team has a harder, outside of maybe BYU or maybe Cincinnati, has a harder 4-game stretch to start conference play. You got Kansas State, Baylor, Kansas, which everyone's like, Kansas. Hey, Kansas has 2 dudes on the first team all Big 12 offense. Yep. They're going to put up 40 points a game. And then you got Oklahoma after a bye week. And so, didn't do them any favors, but this is a team I think that understands that if they can keep the boat afloat through those first 4 games, it's a very, very winnable backstretch that I think they can capitalize on. I think they also, what was neat with Ricky Barber, guys, that stuck out to me is when I asked him a question about being on that stage, being in Arlington, being at the home of the Dallas Cowboys, he kind of took a moment to look around at the stage he was on, and he realized how special it was to be there representing his school. And this is a defensive line and a defensive front for UCF that's supposed to be really good. And I think he realized how neat this was, and he's just ready to prove what UCF can do against some of these big dogs.
Alex, you cover this team pretty closely. I mean, you're around them. You sort of know what's happening as they move to the Big 12. Are there any areas where you're concerned that they're not quite ready yet? If that's fundraising, if that's depth of athletes, is there any area where you have concern about UCF fitting into the Big 12?
Concern number one is what happens if John Rice Plumlee gets hurt.
Yeah.
That's, I think, at the forefront of my mind. He had some health issues last year, and things dropped off a little bit. I think if John Rice can stay healthy, they'll be fun to watch. I think wide receivers wise, Javon Baker is obviously, he's going to be an elite downfield threat, but is Darren Hinshaw's offensive philosophy going to allow this team to do what I think last year, when we saw a downfield bomb, you're up in the press box, like, oh, finally, it's like, this is the Big 12. It's not the American anymore. So if you're not going to be airing it out, I know Darren Hinshaw likes to do that. If you're not going to be airing it out and giving your weapons on the edge a chance to put up some numbers, then you're going to get beat. And I think they're going to learn quickly how important it is to put up big numbers in this conference. I think this is a team that, I asked Ricky as well and said, hey, the Big 12 is known for high-flying offenses, and they're going to put up numbers. It's going to be a good day if you can only give up, if you give up 24 25 points a game, that's okay, because you can just put up 35 and win. And Ricky said, he's like, look, we're taking it as a personal challenge. We're getting a lot of preseason accolades for our defensive line, and we need to embrace that and get pressure on the quarterback and cause havoc for these offenses. Because if you give these opposing offenses in the Big 12 time, it's going to be a long day at the office.
Alex, you mentioned the schedule, being daunting at the beginning, with Kansas State, Which game do you think UCF kind of can surprise people and be like, wow, I didn't expect them to, pull that one off, but they're give them a good chance that they will,
That's a good question. I was going to say, if it wasn't Big 12, I'd say, you guys probably have already touched on it on the show before, but yesterday Boise State was picked to win the Mountain West, and that week 2 matchup is it's not great. I think UCF goes there and wins, but it's going to be a really tough game. Boise State is, I think, back to where they were, at least top 25 potential at Boise State. The way they finished last year, beating North Texas in the bowl game, they're going to be fun. But in terms of the Big 12, that's a good question, because I'll say this too. If UCF starts off strong, I wouldn't be surprised if they gave Oklahoma a really good game down there in Norman, because there's so many, when you're playing a dude that used to be on your team, and they have a lot of respect for Dylan Gabriel, and Oklahoma went 6-6 last year. We got to see him in the Cheez-It Bowl here in Orlando, and Oklahoma is not the Oklahoma of the past. And yeah, they finished the year strong last year, and they're going to be much better under Brent Venables this season. But I think UCF can go down there and give them a game, and take advantage of Oklahoma's last season in the league and try to leave a nice legacy mark in year 1 for UCF. Dylan Gabriel is a really talented quarterback. There's Heisman buzz for a reason. But just the way I heard UCF players talking about that game, they want to get up for that one. And when you have that sort of energy and a reason to perform on the road like that, I think it can create a fun storyline and a fun game.
You're still fairly new to the Orlando market. How would you describe the reaction you get from UCF coverage, the comments from viewers, feedback that you hear? Do you feel a buzz as they move into the Big 12?
I feel a huge buzz, and it really, the really big wave was at media days of this excitement. And when we cover UCF, and I made it a point of emphasis when I got to Orlando of, look, we're a year away from this Big 12 move. I've been here about 10, 11 months. It's like, this is a big, transition season of going from the American to the Big 12. We need to be there for this story. It's a huge story. And it's more than just football, guys. It's every sport. It's facility upgrades. It's bigger than just and it's a story bigger than sports as well. But great reception. No one has ever reached out to me and said, you're covering UCF too much. It's always like it's not like, hey, we've gotten some like comments here and there like, hey, why don't you cover Miami more? It's like, because South Florida's 4 hours away. But it's one of those things where people are appreciative, people care. And when we do go out of our way to make a trip, like going to Texas and covering Big 12 Media Days, we've gotten a lot of feedback. Just thanks for giving them a platform. Thanks for giving the players a platform, the athletes, the coaches. And the coaches were appreciative as well because, it's one thing to go down there and put out your message, but if your own hometown media isn't, reciprocating there and at least talking about them, being fair as well, then it's tough. But you guys are all over the UCF beat, and I think it's neat to see this program on the rise get as much attention as they're getting. If this fit didn't make sense and this team didn't have a lot of talent on it, and I don't think it would matter as much. If you, I think it's one of those things where if they went into the conference, you're like, they were picked 14th and it's going to be a solidified 14th. I think it'd be a little different, but they're in a fun place. Picked middle of the pack by the media. They were picked 8th. I had them 7th. But as we've seen, the last couple of Big 12 champs have come out of that middle.
Do you plan to cover any road games?
Great question. If I was in charge of the budget, I would say every game.
Do they spend all the budget on sending you to Arlington?
No. Thankfully. But no, there is if we do cover a couple road games, the two at the top of the list are K-State in the opener, going to Manhattan, because it's the first game. That Baylor game, the second week's gonna be a lot of fun too, with Big 12 homecoming in town. But that K-State game, that first week is going to be huge. And then the second one is Oklahoma. When you have Dylan Gabriel, when you have Danny Stutzman, I don't know if you guys have talked about him at all, but he's from Orlando, played at Foundation Academy, led the Big 12 in tackles last year. He's a stud for that Oklahoma defense. When you have those storylines, it's Oklahoma's last season. I think that would be neat to atmosphere. It's such a fun atmosphere. And I think UCF fans in general are going to want to go on the road. Big 12 fans are going to want to come here, but UCF fans are going to want to go to some of these unique venues like Oklahoma State, whenever they get next year. So it'd be fun. Hopefully they send us. I will say if a game we're the ABC station, if a game is on ABC on the road, there's a very strong chance we go there and do a live special and get that done.
Alex, were you wearing that tie before our show, or did you put that tie on just for us?
I could totally lie and say I'm just dressing for the occasion of being in your company,
Okay.
But just got off the sports desk, and so This is the one I wore today. I made sure to wear very neutral colors in Arlington though, because I don't want people to say, "Oh, he's an Oklahoma fan. What's he doing?" Or I guess this is red. So Kansas, maybe Houston.
How many ties do you own, if you had to guess?
Too many. What's weird though is I own probably 60 to 65 ties, but I only wear like 12 of them. I feel like that's every guy though. Like we all have those ones we just lean on and like.
So we'll see this red one in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, yeah. People always, Yeah, I go through a rotation of like 10 of them, and no one's ever said, "Hey, I can't believe you wore that tie," for the second time this month.
They will now. We'll be watching.
Hey, if people start calling me out on that, that's fine. I'll embrace it. So,
Alex, as far as predictions for the record, UCF, give us a real quick prediction of what you think is going to go down this season.
That's man. I tell you what. One thing that I learned from being down in Arlington is, historically, the Big 12 media is really, really bad at picking the Big 12 champion. And that joke was made a lot. It was one of those things where, because at the last couple of years, no one's picking the champ. It's coming out of the middle. And one of the sports director down in Dallas, his name's Newey Scruggs. He's a good dude. His pick to win the conference was Texas Tech. I don't think not too many people have that. And so I have UCF finishing 7th, guys. They were picked to finish 8th. I have them 7th. It's just a really difficult schedule, and it just starts off really, really tough. It's like, welcome to the Big 12. See how you handle it. I think if UCF in that stretch can go 2-2, when you're looking at Kansas State, Baylor, Kansas, and Oklahoma, you go 2-2 in that stretch, that back half is very winnable. And I don't mean like win half of them. I mean, you can if you have a good season, everyone's healthy, you can run that table back half. And so if I had to guess, I'd say probably somewhere, I think 8-4 I'd say 8-4 is almost the ceiling. I just don't see a way where if you win 9 games in your debut Big 12 season, that's big time.
Yeah, I think that's a consensus.
I think 8-4 is my ceiling, and I think anything less than 6-6 would be incredibly disappointing. There's too much talent on this team.
Yeah.
You're a fair, impartial member of the media. You're also a Penn State alum. How much do you bleed for Penn State? How passionate are you?
Do I have any? I got a Penn State pillow on my couch back there. But usually there's more Penn State stuff. I'm a huge Penn State guy. They got playoff aspirations this year. They opened up against Neil Brown in West Virginia in the opener, and so I'll have the chance to go back during UCF's bye week. I try to go back, and I was all excited because with the bye week, I was like, Penn State's home, great. I hope it's a huge game. Maybe Michigan or Ohio State. It's UMass, so. But I'm still going because it's the one time I can go all fall. I was like, why is it UMass? And it's our Friday night football show, so I can't even fly until Saturday morning. So thankfully it's a 3:30 kickoff, so it gives me plenty of time. We got Matt Dolan here saying the Hawkeyes are going to win the whiteout. Oof, that's tough. Yeah, Iowa's always been a pin in our side. But if you guys ever get the chance to go to Happy Valley, fun story real quick. My senior year of college is when UCF came to Penn State. Blake Bortles, Storm Johnson, those guys beat Penn State. It was one of the few games I got to go as a student because I was meaning as a fan, I was so locked into, getting my TV, radio ready to do post-grad work. And one of the few games I went to as a fan in UCF. I remember thinking at that point back in 2014, I think a lot of Big Ten people were like, UCF, they're a lot better than we thought. And look at them now a decade later, Power 5. It's pretty neat.
It's a good story. Alex, we appreciate you being so generous with your time tonight between sportscasts, and you can catch Alex on WFTV Channel 9 here in Orlando. Alex, thanks for being with us on Suns Live. We'll see you out there.
Hey, thanks, guys. You do a great job. Talk to you soon.